use the raise hand function to ask questions. Wait for me to call. JJ?
Jeff, what were your big takeaways after watching the film from last week?
Just how hard we played. They gave an amazing effort, which has been consistent the entire season. We were really good up front defensively. In the back, we were a lot more sound. Offensively, about as good as we could play that first half. And did enough in the second half to get the win. And special teams, other than the hands team, it was as good as we've been on special teams all year.
Greg?
Jeff, do you see this as a beneficial time now to have an open week, coming off a big win, but with a lot of guys still banged up?
Yeah, especially the way we did it. I mean, game days are always the worst injuries. I mean, injuries are bad, period, Greg. But when it happens in the game and you get a lot of them in one spot, it's really hard to fix all that. Because I know everybody believes, well, the backup should get the exact same reps as the starters, and it sounds wonderful, but it's just hard to do. At least we knew going into the game who was out. Like, we knew the whole secondary was pretty much out, so the next group got to work all week, and those guys stayed healthy during the game, so that was very fortunate because they did a good job back there. Even though we gave up 450, we were still sound and in good spots most of the time. But when you have him on the day of the game, like Willie not being able to play, which he had practiced all week, and then you have Robert breaking his thumb, catching a kick, those kind of things are just really hard to prepare for. That shook us a little bit, honestly, in pregame. Had to do some shifting around, and I thought the guys did a really good job of adjusting.
I wanted to ask about those situations. First, with Robert that you mentioned, how did you feel like that impacted him in the game, and what's sort of the outlook going forward?
I'm really proud of him. I've coached running backs, as a position, and most running backs, when they break their thumb, they don't really want to go play in a game because of the risk of fumbling, pass protecting, carrying the ball in the right hand. Then you got to use your left hand for the stiff arm, and you got a broken thumb. I mean, it's just tough. That kid's really tough, and he played really hard. And he didn't play as much as he normally would have, but we got him enough out there to help us win the ball game. Really proud of Robert for showing that kind of toughness, especially of all the things I'm proud of. When your season goes as rough as ours has, and those two crushing losses, like after we left the Rice game, we were all like, oh, what could be worse? And East Carolina, oh, what could be worse? And then we go do worse at Tulsa, right? And now you're like, what could be worse? And that our kids have not splintered in any way. And I know, the skeptics might believe I'm just saying that just to cover it up, but that's the truth. Those guys are here. Y'all are at practice. You wouldn't know our record. Now, those guys are bouncing around at practice. Now we're really gimped up. There's about 16 or 18 of them just on crutches walking around. But other than that, the rest of them are out there bouncing and hopping and getting after it. And I'm really proud that they got some success because they've been so true to the process this entire season.
You also touched on the adjustment with Willie McCoy not being there. What is that process like, and how did the guys respond to that?
Well, we were like an NFL team. We were huddling more, basically telling everybody where to go. And I don't know if y'all could tell, it took us 8 seconds to get lined up on the line of scrimmage, just getting all the receivers lined up and us hollering at them and moving them around. And it was quite an experience, to be honest. But, man, the kids were wonderful. They handled it very well, especially Chris. Because the hardest part was he was the one we were throwing it deep to almost every time, and you got to get him when he runs one go right. You want to throw another one, but he's dead tired, right? So you got to just be smart in how you handle all that. And I thought those receivers did a really good job of complimenting each other. A great third down catch by Jamel Hardy. Really right out to the drop, by JJ to come back and have the 40-yard catch. That was really good to see him do that. Amador being back in the lineup was huge. He can do so many things for us. Really proud of that group for how they covered for Willie.
JJ?
Jeff, I wanted to ask you about David. What was his impact? He made his debut this week, and how did you think he came out and played?
I think he's about 75 or 80%, but I still 75 or 80% of David's plenty. He's just so heads up. Like even the little double pass we threw, you try to give him all the looks you can. Houston did a great job of kicking out on the block, but just David had that savvy to move over to the right when you're a wide receiver, take your time, make a really great throw. There's just things he can do, run in the power read. He made a great read, get the ball on the edge out there. Him playing at North Shore in big ball games, especially if having to play quarterback, has made that kid prepare for that moment. You're always nervous when you put a kid out there and you ask him to do that much his very first game back, but I thought he handled it well. I think you'll see him get up to speed during the bye week and look more like himself by the time we get to North Texas, I'm hoping.
What was the impact of the tight ends group? They were pretty productive against Memphis. Yeah,
they just have been all year. I mean, I'm really proud of that group. Losing Oscar is a huge blow for us. He's as good a run blocker and got the salt in his hands. He's on our punt team. He's on the field goal team. He's a captain. He's just been one of the staples of UTSA football these last 5 seasons. So losing him was a huge loss. Emotionally, too, because our kids just love him so much. But that tight end room, I knew they were going to step up for that guy. They're not going to let him down. They worship Oscar, as we all do. And I knew each one of those kids, Dan, Houston, Patrick, were going to step up, and they did.
I know you said Oscar had surgery, but was he involved in trying to get that group up to speed in the lead up to that game? And then how's Oscar doing?
Always. Oscar doesn't miss a meeting. He's an assistant coach. If you know his family, you know Oscar, man. They're just loyal, good people. I'm just crushed for him and his family that they did it right the entire time. And I know they wanted to see that kid finish out here, especially this last month where a lot of our games are at home. It's really a sad deal, but Oscar will make the best of it. He'll be ready for pro day, and I tell every NFL team here, they'll have a hard time getting rid of Oscar Cardenas when they get him on their roster.
Greg?
I wanted to ask about Oscar. How do you reflect in the bigger picture on just what he's meant to the program and your time here, knowing that now he's played his last snap for you?
Yeah, I don't think it could be overstated enough. Just to think of the historic catches he's made, and look at this season, how those one little plays have made such a difference in how we all feel. And let's just think about if he hadn't have made some of those catches, right? The catch against North Texas, which led us to the second conference championship. The catch against UAB, which led us to the first conference championship. I mean, just historically. And then that's just on the field. Then off the field, what he's meant to the city of San Antonio, how loyal he's been to this place. And we've been playing football 14 seasons. And nobody really knows our story except for us right here on this screen, unless of guys like Oscar Cardenas and Frank Harris and Rashad Wisdom, who made us a national story. And I think that's going to always be what these guys' legacy will be. Obviously, Coach Coker in his era, and then Coach Wilson got us to this point. But the play of Oscar and Frank and Rashad all being San Antonio kids to make us a national story, it's pretty cool that I had no idea that's the first top 25 team we've ever beaten in the history of our school. That's just really cool stuff. And none of that happens without guys like Oscar.
And then you lost Ken Robinson in the same week, another guy who has made a lot of plays for you here and has been around for a long time. How do you sort of reflect on his tenure with the Roadrunners?
Very similar. I mean, think of the interception against North Texas, which led to a conference championship. I mean, those are all Ken. Ken's been a staple back there in that secondary for all 5 years here for us. And, again, off the field, you can speak just as highly of Ken as I did of Oscar. Highly intelligent, high-character kid. Has helped bring this program to national prominence. And I know this season we're not in national prominence, but in this time, those two kids have led this team to that kind of talk and recognition, which has been good for all of us.
You had another new piece of history this week as well with Jamal Ligon breaking the tackles record. How did you see him react to that, and what did that moment mean to you?
Oh, I doubt he even smiled knowing Jamal, he's got RBF worse than I do. He's just a very serious dude at all times, and I hope I made him grin in the locker room. Knowing him, he didn't even want to be recognized. He just wants to go play football, and But again, I'm saying the same thing I am about Ken and Oscar. Very similar type of child. I mean, just a wonderful player on the field. He's made historic plays here, helped us win championships, and just as good off the field. I mean, just the epitome of what you want your program to look like.
JJ.
Jeff, what can you say about the defensive effort and I guess how your coordinator dialed it up against what was a pretty good Memphis offense?
Yeah, I thought we played good in the first half. I thought we were very unfortunate. We just weren't good enough to overcome the penalty on the interception, and then we had them stopped on that drive. We didn't overcome the penalty on the hitting the quarterback when he went into his slide. Then I thought Seth made two really good throws. And they made great plays. Those are really good players, man. A lot of times our guys were in great position. There's a couple of times we weren't. We weren't perfect. But those guys made a lot of great catches too. And really proud of them. To stop them 7 or 8 or 9 times in a row, whatever that was in the second half, was pretty phenomenal. I thought we got a little careful in the first 2-minute drive. Obviously, our hands team did not execute very well. And that was unfortunate. But I thought we were better on that second drive, much more contested catches, and then one of the craziest catches you ever see in the history of football there in the end. And then they got the hands team out there, and we got the ball back, and the game's over.
You had some young players playing in the secondary for you this week, and I know you talked about the difference between in-game throwing them out there and having a week to prepare. How did you think some of those young guys played in your secondary?
Yeah, I thought that was the biggest difference. You know, Jamarius is getting thrown out there against Tulsa, where now you know you're the guy and you're preparing all week with Elliott back there. That tremendous growth there. And then Elijah coming out there as a freshman, you know, kind of looked like Jamarius did the week before. You know what I mean? Just when you're out there just 20 snaps, it's not the same as when you're the guy and you got to be out there all the time. I really was proud of Davin, you know, our freshman corner, went out there and played really well. Even though he gave the touchdown catch on the one before the last one, it was an unbelievable catch. Davin was right there in great position. Was so proud of him. And those guys grew up. You know, Cyrus had a really good game. Had the interception that got called back, but he also caused the fumble and recovered it. And then obviously you had Jamarius with the interception, which is a big play in the game.
Greg.
Jeff, we did not talk specifically after the game about the 4th and short stops that your defense came up with against Memphis. How critical were those plays, and what stood out to you about what you guys did in those situations?
Yeah, I thought the one before halftime was more like a statement. You know what I mean? Like, and Memphis had been so good at doing that all year. That does give you confidence in what their play call might be, because they'd be foolish to not do what they've been doing. But it was kind of like, here's our best, you run your best, and let's just see who's better. And I thought that gave us great confidence at halftime. So we stopped them on 4th and 1 3 times, and we stopped them on 4th and 6 once. So 4 4th down stops. Our defense couldn't have done much more. They were fantastic.
You guys, all year, the defensive front has delivered sacks, tackles for loss, and they do pretty well in a lot of the advanced stats, too. What is it that has allowed that group up front to be so successful for you guys?
Really good players that have been here a long time. I've been saying that, you know. Brandon Brown, Osiris Simon, Christian Clayton, Jamal Ligon, Martavius French, Brevin Randall. Those guys have been here for a long, long time. Ronald Triplett. And we got some young guys going out there that are playing well, too. It's a culture here. We've been really good at stopping the run for 5 seasons. And those guys take great pride in it. They call themselves the EBE. You know, everybody eats. I'm not exactly see how that exactly works. It looks like they'd be EE, but it's EBE. And they all eat, man. They do.
We talked to Coach Lepp before the season, and he wasn't sure if you guys would have the same depth up there that you've had in previous years. And now, even without Joe Evans and without Johnny Bowens, those guys have still really delivered at a high level. Has that been a surprise to you at all, especially with some of the newcomers?
Is everybody one word, or is that 2 words? Everybody. That would be 2 words, right? Or is everybody?
I think
what is that?
It's 1 word in that context. You're right. I think that's an EE situation.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had one of those moments there where I'm like, oh, Lord, I didn't want to be on whatever that thing is they make fun of me all the time on Barstool Sports again. Your question about the young guys. Yeah, losing Johnny was a big loss. Obviously, losing Joe was a big loss, to your point. But I'm really proud of those guys that have stepped up. I mean, it's crazy. You know, Kenny's gone in there and done stuff for us. John's gone in there. You know, Damian Wembley's coming on for us now. Chad, really proud. I'm sure I'm leaving out somebody. I don't ever think of Tripp as a young guy, but he is getting to come back, thank goodness. Ty Leonard was out there this week making plays. Those guys take a lot of pride in that. Big Baby out of New Orleans in there making plays. Coach Haynes does a wonderful job with those guys. He really does. Those guys love him. He loves them, and they play hard for him.
JJ?
Jeff, I just looked it up. Your quarterback is tied for the 8th most touchdowns in the nation. What can you say about the play of Owen through this season?
Well, it's been phenomenal. But when you add in those 3 linemen not out there, his receivers being gone most of the year, he's now lost Oscar. I think that makes it more phenomenal. Especially just being a sophomore. This is his first year to really start. I think you're seeing him get better each week. Some small things this week that need to be celebrated. He threw the ball away like 4 times. So his stats were down, right, on percentage, but we didn't take a sack the entire ball game. That hasn't happened the entire year. We didn't have very many minuses in the game. We didn't have a lot of gashing runs, but we're moving forwards. Those are small victories. It's hard to overcome pre-snap penalties, negative plays, and sacks. And if you look as good as we've been on offense here the last 5 years, that's always held true. You got to eliminate pre-snap penalties. Obviously, turnovers, we had none of those again. That was huge. And I can't say enough about his development, his toughness. And I don't ever watch his interviews. I just know the kid so well. I'm sure he's a lot like Frank. I bet he never talks about himself one time. He's just he understands. And I got to watch Frank. That was huge. And he got to watch his father for a long time doing it.
The decision making and the internal clock, are those improvements just with the more reps you take?
Yeah, and probably getting his noodle knocked around like he's been getting knocked around. I mean, he's probably you learn. Like I was cooking some eggs Sunday, and I accidentally touched that thing at a spot where I didn't know the pan was still hot. That I had him sitting over there for a moment. I thought it'd cool off by then. Well, I'm not touching that. You think, when you beat a top 25 team, your wife might make you some eggs, but I had to make my own eggs Sunday. And I touched that thing. It was too hot, JJ, and I don't want to touch it next Sunday when I'm cooking again. Same with Owen. I mean, it's kind of how you learn. I'm like, how many times you want to take that hit, Bubba? Now, it's one thing when they just miss on the backside and you don't know it's coming. There's nothing he can do about it. But you got to know when to quit patting that thing and let it go and live to see another play. And I really believe he improved tremendously here through the year on that point you're making.
Greg?
I like how you immediately went from I don't want to get picked up by Barstool Sports to the story about touching the hot pan.
Yeah, Lord help me. I'm sure my mom is cringing right now.
But more on topic, I wanted to ask about Owen along the same lines of what you were talking about. He's looked more downfield the last 3 games compared to previously in the season. Is that something you guys wanted to change tactically, or is that just a product of his continued development?
Well, I think you got to look up front. Our line has improved so much on pass protection. I mean, he had real pockets to step into and throw the football. That helps a quarterback, right? Early in the year, y'all were watching. We were scared to call anything other than a quick and a screen. But as the years progress, we've just continued to get better and better and better. And our guys like each other. They like playing football. I know we've not been what you guys have wanted us to be, but we have really gotten better on offense. I mean, it's crazy the production those guys are doing, especially with the injuries that those guys have gone through. I'm really proud of those kids for how they just keep next man up mentality.
How important has that growth up front been to Chris Carpenter being able to emerge and have some of the catches he's had the last couple weeks?
I don't think we're here without him. I mean, his role was going to be to return kicks and be in the mix at receiver. His role was not going to be the fly sweep guy, the reverse guy, the post guy, the fly guy, the change-up fly guy, return to punts as well. And, oh, by the way, 3rd down possession, we need a few of those too. Oh, by the way, 4th down, we're going to throw a slant to you as well. I mean, that's a lot, man. We've spread the wealth since we've been here, and there's just he's been unbelievable of how he's carried us, all 158 pounds of him.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about was Jamori Robinson. I didn't see him much in the second half of the game. Is there an injury situation with him, or what's his status going forward?
Yeah, he got hurt in the Tulsa game, and we were just monitoring him. He just, he wasn't himself.
JJ.
Jeff, what's the overall health of your team? I think I saw a graphic on the TV broadcast, like 20-something guys down. Yeah, well, 12 are for the year, so there's nothing you can do about those 12. And I don't think it was 20. I would say it's 18. If my trainer's right, and I hope he's right, of those 6, I think we could possibly see 3 or 4 of those guys back before the season's up. How many of those will be back for North Texas, I'm not really for sure yet. But we need some guys back. Obviously, you're going to get Willie back because, he wasn't injured. He was just with his baby. Robert with a broken thumb. I think in 2 weeks we'll get a better situation on how to put that thing in a cast and protect him. Bumps and bruises, ankles, shoulders, ribs, typical football injuries right now. So we came out of the last game not as destroyed as we've been in these other games, which is always crazy when you play those incredibly good teams and it's a really, really fast game. It's unbelievable how a lot of times you come out of there with not as many injuries. It's a weird deal. And this is the second bye week for you guys. What's the difference in coming into this week after a big win versus, the loss?
Oh, just the way they feel. But the video's a video. Like I told them, this video's no different. I mean, there's stuff on there we got to fix. There are things that were done in the game that would have cost us the ball game and have cost us ball games. The video's the video. You can't let it's another one-possession game. East Carolina, basically a one-possession game. Rice, one-possession game. Tulsa, one-possession game. Guess what, boys? These next 3, they liable to be one-possession games. You can't look at it any other way. We feel better about ourselves, right? Y'all are being nicer today. Greg had mentioned penalties. Greg had mentioned drop passes. Greg had mentioned coaching decisions, right? All that stuff has been just over. Nobody's talking about today. Where when you lose, that's the mood. That's the feeling. And it's always so crazy, the difference. So I've tried to keep my guys very grounded. The video's the video. The MAs are still the MAs. What can we do to get better? We got to keep getting better, keep stacking days, going 1-0. And I really felt this team was going to be really, really good this year because they like playing ball, and we hit our stride right now. Now, the injuries have got us a little worried because we don't have many guys left, but the ones we have left are still getting better.
Anything else for Coach Traylor? All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. God bless. Birds up.